What would you do if the person you protected the most turned out to be the very reason you lost everything? Not your enemy, not a stranger, but the one who held your secrets, the one who cried on your shoulder, the one who swore they'd never leave your side. Imagine standing in a courtroom, your reputation bleeding out for all to see, and all it would have taken was a single voice, her voice, to save you. And yet, she sat in silence, eyes low, lips sealed, as if loyalty were some heavy weight she couldn't bear to carry. My name is Olivia Carter, and I once believed that strength was about how much you could carry, how many people you could protect, how far you could stretch yourself before you broke. But I was wrong, because strength isn't just in standing tall, it's in speaking up when it counts. And weakness? It doesn't always look like what you expect. Sometimes, it comes dressed in soft smiles, quiet nods, and a heart too scared to speak the truth. Her name was Grace Whitmore, and she was my best friend. We were inseparable, two shadows moving as one. We met in college, bonded over shared dreams and long nights of studying, instant noodles, and whispered confessions. We dreamed of changing the world together, me, with my fierce passion for law, her, with her soft heart and gentle intelligence. People said we balanced each other perfectly. I used to think that too. Until the day everything collapsed. Until the day I was accused of something vile, something I didn't do, and she, the only one who knew the truth, said nothing. Silence. That was her betrayal. And trust me when I say, silence can scream louder than any accusation. That day rewired everything in me. It shifted the axis of my world. The fire I'd used to build my future turned to smoke overnight. My job vanished. My name became gossip. My parents couldn't look me in the eye. I walked through life like a ghost, carrying the weight of a lie that didn't belong to me. And Grace? She faded into the background. She didn't stand up. She didn't come forward. She didn't visit. She didn't call. She didn't say a word. She became invisible. But what people forget is, truth doesn't stay buried forever. Even the quietest guilt finds its way to the surface. Years passed. I rebuilt. Slowly. Painfully. I found new ground beneath my feet, even though the wounds still ached. I told myself I didn't need her truth, that I was stronger without it, that I'd move on. Until one day, I heard her name again, in the most unexpected place. And with it, her voice. Speaking my name. Speaking the truth. Finally. But by then, the damage had been done. The silence had already changed the course of my life. And now, she wanted to undo it with words. But can words heal what silence destroyed? This is the story of how my world broke in the quiet, and how, years later, a single confession echoed back to me, louder than I ever imagined. A story about betrayal, silence, and the twisted mercy of truth arriving far too late. Long before the betrayal, there were just two girls, standing side by side at the edge of their futures. I was the loud one, the firecracker, the planner, the dreamer with 10 backup plans in my journal. Olivia Carter, daughter of a single mother, raised to fight for everything she ever wanted. I didn't have the luxury of failure. I was the girl who knew that if she didn't make it, no one would catch her. I grew up with discipline, grit, and a fierce desire to prove my worth. I worked 2 jobs through college, earned every grade with sweat and sacrifice, and when I walked into law school, I promised myself I'd never be at the mercy of anyone again. Then came Grace Whitmore. Grace was everything I wasn't. Quiet, soft-spoken, gentle, the kind of girl who cried during sad commercials and always carried a spare Band-Aid. She came from a well-off family, parents who still sent her care packages and money when she didn't ask for it. She didn't struggle the way I did, but she never looked down on me. In fact, she admired me. Or so I thought. We were roommates during our 2nd semester. What started as a convenience turned into a friendship that felt more like sisterhood. We were each other's lifelines during breakdowns and burnouts. Grace had anxiety. Social situations overwhelmed her. But I helped her through it, held her hand during her panic attacks, gave her speeches before every presentation. I believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. She, in turn, listened to all my rants, edited my papers, and reminded me to breathe when I was overworking myself into exhaustion. She had a gentleness I didn't know I needed, and I gave her the strength she didn't know she had. For years, we were a team. She even interned with me at the law firm I joined after graduation. She didn't have a lawyer's heart, but she had a sharp mind for research and an eye for detail. People loved her, and I was proud to have her by my side. Looking back, maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I was too wrapped up in being her protector to see the cracks forming underneath. Maybe I ignored the way she looked at me when I was praised, or the tight smiles she gave when I was recognized and she wasn't. Maybe I brushed it off when she joked, "I'll always be your shadow, Liv." I thought it was harmless. I thought we were solid. But one incident changed everything. We had just landed a sensitive case, one that involved powerful names, potential corruption, and a scandal that could have rocked the entire firm. I was chosen to handle it, but Grace was assigned to assist me. It was our biggest opportunity yet. I told her this would be the breakthrough, our chance to rise together. What I didn't know was that someone was watching, and someone else was planning. A rival from inside the firm, someone who felt threatened by me, began manipulating documents, framing me for leaking confidential information. I had no idea anything was wrong until the official notice came down. Termination. Investigation. Reputation ruined. And the worst part? She was the only other person who had seen the files. The only other one who had access to the system during the timeline of the breach. She knew I hadn't done it. She had seen the manipulations. She had the emails, the timestamps, the truth. And she said nothing. I begged her, not on my knees, but in every look I gave her. I didn't need her to fight. I just needed her to speak. To confirm what I already knew. To stand by me the way I always had for her. But when the board asked her if she had anything to add, she shook her head and whispered, "I didn't see anything." And just like that, she disappeared from my life. She didn't return my messages, didn't defend me, didn't even check in. It was as if I never existed. And I, Olivia Carter, the girl who had survived everything, couldn't survive that. Not at first. Not when the betrayal came from the one I would have taken a bullet for. People pitied me. Some avoided me. Some believed I was guilty. But the worst part wasn't what they thought. It was knowing that she knew the truth and chose silence anyway. And for what? Protection? Fear? Jealousy? I never knew. And for years, I stopped trying to understand it. I buried Grace Whitmore in the past and told myself she no longer mattered. Until the day she made herself known again. It began with a whisper. A voice I hadn't heard in years. A name I hadn't allowed myself to say out loud since the day she betrayed me. I heard it on a podcast. A legal-themed episode was trending, something about justice, redemption, and speaking truth after years of silence. I hadn't planned to listen. But as I sat in traffic, the radio auto-played the next cued show. And then, there she was. Her voice. Softer, shakier, but unmistakably her. The host introduced her as a former legal assistant turned advocate for ethical reform. They called her a survivor of internal corruption and a whistleblower. My stomach twisted at the irony. I pulled over, hands trembling, heart pounding, and I listened. She talked about fear, about guilt, about being young and overwhelmed, about watching someone she loved be punished while she froze, paralyzed by her own weakness. She didn't mention my name, but every word, every pause, every broken sentence. It was me. I thought I'd feel triumphant, vindicated, that after all these years, hearing her admit the truth would feel like victory. But all I felt was rage. Not fiery, not loud. A quiet, simmering kind of rage, the kind that settles deep in your bones. I went home and found her social media. She had rebranded herself as an activist. She ran panels, gave talks, wrote essays. She was a face for courage under silence. The woman who hadn't said a word when it could have saved me was now profiting from her delayed truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. The memories came back like a flood. The office,
The boardroom.
The cold conference table where I stood alone. The way people looked at me, like I was something to be discarded. The articles. The whispers. The pity. And her face. Staring down. Saying nothing. Now she was on stages, earning applause for her bravery. Was this justice? I tried to move on. Again. I told myself I didn't need anything from her.
Not now.
But life has a funny way of dragging unfinished stories to the surface. A week later, I got a call. From an old friend at the firm, someone who still believed in me. There's a private arbitration case, she said. Confidential.
High stakes.
They're asking for external counsel. Your name came up. My heart skipped. It was a second chance. A door I thought had closed forever. I accepted. The case was intense, months of work, research, prep. I threw myself into it, determined to prove, once again, that I was worth the name I had rebuilt. That the woman they had tried to bury was still alive and burning brighter than ever. And then, at the final hearing,
She walked in.
she was there, part of the witness list. I hadn't seen her name in the early disclosures. Apparently, she had been added late, representing a related party. Her presence was technically legal but completely unexpected. Our eyes locked for the first time in almost 6 years. She froze. I didn't. I didn't blink.
Didn't flinch.
I simply turned back to my files, as if she were just another name on the paper. But inside, my chest was burning. After the hearing, she approached me. "Olivia," she whispered, like saying my name might shatter something fragile between us. I kept my posture firm. "Grace." She looked like a ghost of the girl I knew. Still gentle, still quiet, but heavier somehow. Carried weight in her eyes she didn't have before. "I heard you were on the case," she said softly. "I didn't. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." I gave her nothing. "I just want to say, I'm sorry," she continued. "I should have spoken up. I was scared. That's not an excuse, but I want you to know I think about it every day." I wanted to scream, or cry, or ask her why now. Instead, I said, "You said nothing when it mattered. Now it's too late." She nodded, biting her lip. "I know. But I also know silence doesn't deserve applause. And I've been getting it. For something I didn't earn." She hesitated, then pulled something from her bag. A folder, thick with documents.
Notes.
Emails. "I've been collecting everything," she said.
Proof.
From back then. Things I found after, things I didn't see clearly until later. "I want you to have it. Use it however you want." I didn't take it. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Do it yourself. Tell the truth publicly. Not on a podcast. Not behind closed doors. Where it cost me everything." Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't comfort her. For once, I wasn't the strong one holding her hand. She left, folder still in hand. The next week, she did what I asked. She went on record,
Submitted testimony.
shared the emails, named names, explained everything. Her statement was released to the firm, to the public, to the legal board. It made waves, reopened investigations, sparked apologies I never asked for. And me? I stayed silent. Because I had already spoken with survival. Her voice came years too late. But at last it came. The public reaction to Grace's statement was immediate and explosive. The same firm that once dismissed me with cold precision now found itself under fire. People began asking questions. Old documents were re-examined. Internal conversations were leaked. Reporters dug through every case connected to the man who had orchestrated the betrayal, the one Grace finally named. His name was Victor Langston, senior partner. Charismatic, charming, politically connected, and deeply unethical. I had always known he was behind the setup, but I had no proof back then. He'd made sure of that. Grace's evidence shattered his defense. Her testimony wasn't just a personal confession. It was the key that unlocked a decade-long pattern of misconduct. And this time, the world listened. News outlets reached out to me for interviews. They wanted my reaction. They wanted the victim's voice. But I declined every offer. I didn't want to be remembered as someone who was saved by another person's confession. Because I wasn't. I had already saved myself. Long before Grace came forward, I had rebuilt my name, my credibility, my reputation. I had clawed my way out of the shadows and stood on my own. Still, something inside me shifted. I couldn't deny the closure her words brought. Not because I needed her apology, but because I needed the truth to exist outside my own memory. One night, after the case had concluded and Grace's statement was making rounds, I found myself sitting alone on the balcony of my apartment. The city buzzed below, and the stars blinked dimly above. I thought of the girl I used to be, the Olivia who believed in loyalty without limits. The Olivia who collapsed under the weight of betrayal. The Olivia who rose again. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. I opened it, and there she was.
Grace.
No folder this time. No prepared speech. Just her. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said, "but I wanted to give you this." She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a letter. Not typed, but written in her delicate, familiar handwriting. I didn't open it in front of her. I just nodded. She turned to leave, then paused. "I wasn't strong," she said, her voice cracking. "But your strength stayed with me, even in my silence. I couldn't forget it. I didn't want to live my whole life running from the truth." And then she was gone. I stood there for a long moment before I unfolded the letter.
It read,
"Dear Olivia, this isn't a justification. This is a confession. I was jealous. You had everything: courage, brilliance, presence. You belonged in every room I felt small in. I told myself I was your shadow, but I didn't realize I resented standing behind you. When everything happened, I froze. And then, when the moment passed, I hated myself for it. I thought silence would spare me, but it only hollowed me. Years went by, and I watched you rise again. Alone.
strong.
And I knew I couldn't hide from my cowardice anymore. You were always the better friend. You always deserved better than me. I hope this truth sets you free, even if it can't fix what I broke.
Grace.
I read it 3 times. Then, with trembling hands, I folded it back and tucked it into the drawer next to my old case files. Not as a keepsake, not as a wound reopened, but as a reminder of what silence costs and what speaking up, even late, can still offer. In the weeks that followed, the legal board officially cleared my record. I received formal apologies, even a job offer from a respected firm in another state. But I turned it down. I had something else in mind. With everything that had happened, I realized I didn't want to return to a world that had once abandoned me so easily. I wanted to build something new on my own terms. So, I started my own legal consulting firm.
Small.
Personal. Focused on ethics, whistleblower protection, and restoring the careers of those who had been silenced. Clients came slowly at first, but word spread. I became known not just as the woman who was betrayed, but as the woman who rose. As for Grace, I never saw her again in person, but I heard about her work. She stepped away from the spotlight, stopped doing talks. She joined a quiet nonprofit, helping young women navigate legal careers and workplace politics. I respected her for that. She was doing the work, not for praise this time, but out of penance. And maybe that was enough. Maybe some stories don't end with best friends reunited or scars completely healed. Maybe some just settle. They shift from sharp pain to distant memory, from betrayal to understanding, from silence to voice. Years later, during a speaking engagement of my own, a young woman asked me, "What would you tell someone who's been betrayed by someone they loved?" I paused. Then I said, "Betrayal can break you, but it doesn't have to define you. Sometimes, the people we protect the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But your strength isn't in how you fall, it's in how you rise." She smiled, and I realized then I had made peace, not with Grace, but with myself. So now I ask you, what do you do when the people you love betray you? Do you carry the pain like a chain around your neck, letting it weigh you down forever? Or do you rise, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. Betrayal is one of the sharpest pains a heart can endure. It doesn't just wound, it shakes your foundation. It makes you question your worth, your judgment, even your very identity. But here's the truth I learned. Your worth was never dependent on someone else's loyalty. And your healing isn't delayed just because their apology took years to arrive. I spent a long time waiting for someone else to do the right thing, to admit they were wrong, to undo the damage. But healing began the day I stopped waiting and chose to move forward on my own. Grace's voice came late.
But mine?
Mine came loud, clear, and unwavering. To anyone out there who has been wronged, silenced, or betrayed, you are not weak for hurting. You are not foolish for trusting. And you are not alone in your pain. But you have a choice to rise, to reclaim your story, to turn the betrayal into something powerful. You may never get the apology you deserve, but you can build a life that no apology could ever give you. Stand tall. Speak your truth. Let them wonder how you survived, then show them how you thrived. And if one day your betrayer finds the courage to speak, listen if your heart allows. But remember, forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not them. So go forward, not with bitterness, but with boldness. Because your voice, your truth, your strength was never weak. It was just waiting to be heard.